bitter. Bitter, 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 bitter. Bitter foods. I love me some bitter foods, but it took me time. I used to hate bitter foods as a youth because that means greens, right? Bitter foods are like our dark leafy greens, and they create a feeling of lightness. They create a feeling of clarity. And when we're younger, when I was younger, I felt pretty light. I was bopping around. I was always had so much energy. Maybe it wasn't super clear, but I felt really light all the time. So instead, I was always craving heavy foods. I wanted chicken, and rice, and fries, chicken, because I already felt really light, potentially. This is where my thoughts go. So when we crave bitter foods, what we're craving potentially is that maybe you're looking for a sense of lightness. You're looking for a sense of clarity. Maybe you just had super heavy foods in the last meal. I'm sure you've been to a place where it's like, oh my gosh, I just ate a freaking burger, a crazy huge burger and french fries, and the next minute you're like, I just want a salad. So we might be craving that lightness, right? Feeling lighter because you ate heavy before. Super fair, super rational, powerful. When it comes to also emotional feelings with bitter, bitter foods can make someone feel energized, right? Like I'm in the right amount, feeling energized, feeling really good. In excess, it can make someone feel resentful. It can make someone feel critical, disappointed, having too much bitter feelings. Feel just eating salads all the time. I don't eat anything else. Me. Biologically, if you're craving bitter foods, there might be a need to clear and stimulate the body to clear out some heat, right? So what bitters do is they allow for the release of bile, which can help to clear proteins, which is like quite heavy and hot, right? Like meat proteins, for example. So bitters could help clear heat. So if you're craving a lot of bitters, maybe there is inflammation going on, and the bitters will help to soothe that and clear it out. It will help to drain dampness, right? This is a good time because we're coming into the spring. Depending on when you're watching this, if we're coming into the springtime, then if there is cold winter about, and then the heat starts to come in, so just same thing that happens in the external world in nature happens within us. So if there's ice melting and becomes muddy, think about the inside of our body, right? We've been eating a lot of heavy fattening foods, and then they start to melt. We start to shed that with the heat of the spring, more movement, more literal hot temperatures, right? So when these things start to melt, then it can lead to damp heat, and bitters can help drain that dampness, because if you look like a damp swamp and that's inside of you, right? The fat or the mucus that is melting inside of you and that just sits there, that is no good. That can lead to more toxicity and inflammation. My goodness. So the bitterness will help to clear that, and maybe that's why you're craving it. Which is great. If, however, you are quite weak or thin and run very cold and dry, then craving bitters at that time would be irrational, would not be a balanced thing to do. Would not be a balanced craving. That would mean you're craving something that is already like you, because like attracts like, right? It feels invigorating, feels alive. So if you are weak, thin, dry, cold all the time, you don't want to be having so much bitters, because that's going to lead to more clearing, more release, and more dryness, more cooling, right? So instead, if you have bitters, make sure that they're well cooked, that you add oils, you add fats, things like this, right? So check in with yourself. How often do you crave bitters? Why might you be craving bitters? Is it balancing to your body? If you look at the other elements that are going on in your life, if you're feeling heavy but still craving heavy foods, then that would be leading to more heaviness. Instead, ask yourself, if I'm heavy, feeling heavy, what's going to create clearing? Something like bitter foods. And then once you start to introduce that, then your body will start to get used to, this is what it feels like to balance. When I'm heavy and I have something lighter, it feels good, it feels invigorating too, instead of heaviness creating more heaviness, right? You start to change things up a bit. So ask yourself, what do you crave and why? Now let's talk about textures, because this is something that comes up all the time. I'm craving crunchy foods. I'm always craving for the crunch, the chips, crunch, crunch, crunch. And this is another sign that your body is craving for something that it needs internally. What is that? If you're craving for crunchy foods, it often means that the body might be feeling congested and watery. Again, damp, heat, or just dampness in general. What are crunchy foods? Typically in nature, what is crunchy? Dry things, right? Chips are dry, right? But what about a food, a whole food? Because what will be balancing are whole foods with these properties, right? So if we're craving crunchiness, that might mean that there is too much water, dampness going on, congestion of water, and a body is craving to dry it up, right? So what would dry it up? Not chips, because chips become mucousy because it's processed. It's not a real whole food. But in nature and in our whole foods, what would be actually balancing? Something that likely astringent foods like beans or pomegranates or artichokes, right? These are like apples, celery, right? Something with insoluble fiber. These are things that are going to absorb some of that dampness. It's still crunchy. It is crunchy, but it's a whole food and it's not processed. So craving crunchiness, likely congested with water. Suck it up with something astringent. Next, creamy. A creamy food like ice cream. A craving for something creamy is likely connected to seeking emotional comfort. This feeling for this creaminess, right? This feeling, I want to be emotionally soothed, seeking comfort, a way to oftentimes alleviate insecurities, or perhaps alleviate feelings of being alone, right? This is so common today in our society. It's extremely common. We're a society that's lacking connection, that's lacking true, deep, unconditional love. And so the cravings for creamy foods can be likely a way to try to self-soothe that through food. It could also mean that there's some kind of inflammation that your craving is asking to soothe that inflammation. So instead, either way, if you're craving for self-soothing through food, try a banana smoothie. Try a creamy, like avocado. You can make a blend avocado with some vanilla and cinnamon, right? Or cacao and or honey, right? Honey is heating and then avocado is cooling, so that might be nice, but also it's creamy. So it's gooey and creamy and comforting, but it will be lighter than ice cream or a parfait that's just with sugar. First thing that comes to my mind. Parfait sounds nice. If it's from whole milk, that's from a cow that's happy, sounds good to me. But, processed parfait, not ideal. Not ideal with sugary fructose granola, right? No, because then it could be craving that crunchiness with the gooiness, the crunchiness that's trying to absorb the water, but then you're adding in more things that are going to create more moisture and dampness and mucus. So it's not ideal. You could also try a mashed sweet potato, or a mashed real potato. to get that creaminess in, right? Next, comfort foods. Comfort foods in general. So looking for just the heavy, often oily comfort foods. Why do we crave comfort foods? Often we're again looking for that comfort, that connection, that being soothed, being held. And if that's not present in life, in work, with family, with friends, then we can often go to food to soothe that instead. So what could be satisfying is a bowl of mashed potatoes. Could be a warm bowl of hot chili, right? Beans are heavy and comforting, but also have really good astringent properties that are going to bring in the proper nutrients that your body likely needs, and minerals. So still get comforted, and also seek connection. If there's someone in your life that you want to speak to, maybe you get out of your comfort zone and you reach out. And you could also look for support from someone like a therapist or a coach or anyone. It's really important to gain the comfort that every human deserves. Let's talk about oily foods. Let's talk about oily cravings. So what do oily foods do? They're satisfying and they're hearty, right? So if we're craving a lot of oily foods, it's likely that we're looking for strength. It's likely that we're looking for this security. So ask yourself, if you're craving a lot of oily foods, do I have strength and security in my life? What exists in one place exists in all places. So we look at this without judgment, just with love, right? Just with curiosity, and how can I fill in the strength, the security in my life, if this is what I'm craving. And then from a food standpoint, you could have something like avocado with salt and pepper. This is oily and satisfying and has good healthy fats in it for you. What about cold foods? So a lot of people, they're like, I don't like warm foods, I just like to eat cold foods. And this might be great for the season that you're in, having lemonade when it's hot, right? This makes sense. We're trying to cool off. This is totally fair, totally fine. It's the only craving for cold foods also in colder seasons, in the winter, or iced coffee in the winter, right? Things like this. So why could someone be craving this all the time? It could mean that there is inflammation in the body, that there's too much heat in the body, and your body is craving for that cooling capability. So try something like mint. Try other aromatic herbs, right? This could be like cardamom. It could be like rose, lavender. Things that are aromatic, right? Help purge heat out of the system. Even sours, adding more sours to the food if it's winter, right? And you're craving cold foods all the time. Bitters as well. Bitters are going to help cool the system down. Yeah, cooling, like cilantro, like cabbage, and you can have bitters warmed or cold, depending on the season that you're in. Ask yourself, am I getting my good dose of cooling foods and warming foods? Thank you for joining me on this exploration of cravings, this exploration of the 6 tastes, this exploration of what my cravings and my taste and my relationship to my cravings might be saying about my internal body. I hope that these tools were helpful for you to become your own greatest healer. It is so important for you to have all the information so that you can make decisions based on what your body is trying to communicate and tell you. And always find support when it's necessary. Whenever we want to move up, we want to level up in life, and we want to surpass where we are in terms of our health. Yes, you are your own greatest healer, and to have someone else alongside of you on that journey to look at things from a seriously non-judgmental perspective, that can also be super helpful. So you are not alone. If there's ever anything that I could do that resonates with you, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have a cleanse coming up, which is using all 6 tastes. It's going to reset your cravings completely, and it's coming up on the 15th. My goodness. I hope you come join us. You can sign up with the link in my bio if you want to reset your cravings, reset your digestive system, and get back in touch with what your body's actually trying to tell you. Sending you so much love. Mwah!